asterisk requires an oral answer. Stat questions. Distinguished by an asterisk requires an oral answer, and supplementary questions can follow. Stat question distinguished by an asterisk requires an oral answer, and supplementary questions can follow. A stat question distinguished by an asterisk requires an oral answer, and supplementary questions can follow. A stat question distinguished by an asterisk. A stat question distinguished by an asterisk and supplementary questions can follow. Written answer question is written answer, and a supplementary question cannot follow. Lesson 10 is it is answered orally. It is answered orally. It is answered orally. A short notice question is one that is asked by giving a notice of lesson 10 is it is answered orally. A short notice question is one that is asked by giving a notice of lesson 10 is. A short notice question is one that is asked by giving a notice of lesson 10 is. It is answered orally. A short notice question is one that is asked by giving a notice of lesson 10 is. It is answered orally. A short notice question is one that is asked by giving a notice of lesson 10 is. It is answered orally. Short notice question is one that is asked by giving a notice of lesson 10 days. It is answered orally. A short notice question is one that is asked by giving a notice of lesson 10 days, and it is answered orally. It is in light pink color. Green stat question and requires an oral answer, and hence supplementary questions can follow. White and stat question on the other hand requires a written answer, and hence supplementary questions cannot follow. A short notice question is one that is asked by giving a notice of less than 10 days. It is answered orally. A short notice question is one that is asked by giving a notice of less than 10 days. It is answered orally. A stat question distinguished by an asterisk requires an oral answer, and supplementary questions can follow. An answered question on the other hand requires a written answer, and supplementary questions cannot follow. A short notice question is one that is asked by giving a notice of less than 10 days. It is answered orally. In addition to the ministers, the question can also be asked to the private members. In addition to the ministers, the questions can also be asked to the private members. The question may be addressed to a private member if the subject matter of the question relates to some resolution or other matter connected with the business of the house for which the member is responsible. The procedure in regard to such question is the same as that followed in the case of question addressed to a minister. The list of stat and stat short notice question and questions to private member are printed in green, white, light pink, and yellow color respectively. To distinguish them from one another, next is 0 hour question hour, then 0 hour question hour, then 0 hour. Unlike the question hour, 0 hour is not mentioned in the rules of procedure. Unlike the question hour, the 0 hour is not mentioned, but it is mentioned in the rules of procedure. Unlike the question hour, the 0 hour is not mentioned in the rules of procedure. This is an informal device. Unlike the question hour, the 0 hour is not mentioned in the rules of procedure. Unlike the question hour, the 0 hour is not mentioned in the rules of procedure. This is an informal device available to the members of the parliament to raise matter without any prior notice. The 0 hour starts immediately after the question hour and lasts until the agenda of the day. The 0 hour starts immediately after the question hour and lasts until the agenda of the day. That is, regular business of the house is taken up. In other words, the question hour and the agenda is known as 0 hour. It is an Indian innovation in the field of parliamentary procedure and has been in existence since 1962. It is an Indian innovation. 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 It is an Indian innovation in the field of parliamentary procedures and has been in existence since 1962. It has been in existence since 1962. I will answer all your queries at the end of the session. So please wait till the end of the session, that is around something 8 o'clock. Motion no discussion on matter of general public importance can take place except on a motion made with the consent of the presiding officer. No discussion on a matter of general public importance can take place. No discussion on a matter of general public importance can take place except on a motion made with the consent of the presiding officer. Okay, the House of Representatives decision of opinions on various issues without option and rejection of motion. No discussion on the matter of general public importance can take place except on a motion made with the consent of the presiding officer. No discussion on the matter of general public importance can take place except on a motion made with the consent of the presiding officer. The House expresses its decision or opinion on various issues without option or rejection of motion moved by either minister or private member. The motion moved by the member to raise discussion on various matters fall into three principal categories. These are moved by the members only, and motions moved by either the ministers or the private members. So, three principal categories. One is the substantive motion. It is a self-contained independent proposal dealing with a very important matter like impeachment of the president or removal of chief election commissioner. Substantive motion. Substitute motion. It is a motion that is moved in substitution of an original motion and proposes an alternative to it. If adopted by the House, it supersedes the original motion. Okay, subsidiary motion. It is a motion that by itself has no meaning and cannot state a decision of the House without reference to the original motion or proceeding of the House. It is divided into three subcategories, that is ancillary motion, superseding motion, and amendment. Motions. No discussion on a matter of general public importance can take place except on a motion made with the consent of the presiding officer. No discussion on a matter of general public importance can take place. So, for a discussion on a matter of general public importance to take place, a motion made with the consent of the presiding officer is necessary. A motion made with the consent of the presiding officer is necessary. The motion moved by the member to raise the discussion on various matters fall into the three principal categories: substantive, substitute, and subsidiary. Substantive, it is a self-contained independent proposal. Substantive motion, that is, it is a self-contained independent proposal dealing with very important matter like impeachment of the president or removal of the chief election commissioner. It is a self-contained independent proposal dealing with a very important matter like impeachment of the removal of the chief election commissioner. Substantive motion, it is a self-contained motion, a self-contained independent proposal dealing with a very important matter like impeachment of the president or removal of chief election commissioner. Substitute motion, it is a motion that is moved in substitution of an original motion. Substitute motion, that is, it is a motion that is moved in substitution of an original motion. What is a substitute motion? That is, it is motion that is moved in substitution of an original motion and proposes an alternative to it. If adopted by the House, it supersedes the original motion. So, subsidiary motion, it is a motion that by itself has no meaning. Subsidiary motion, that is, by itself it has no meaning and cannot state a decision of the House without reference to the original motion or proceeding of the House. This is known as subsidiary motion. So, substantive motion, that is self-contained. It is a self-contained independent proposal. Substantive motion, that is, it is a self-contained independent proposal dealing with a very important matter like impeachment of the president or removal of the chief election commissioner. Substitute motion, that is in substitute of an original motion. In substitute of an original motion. Subsidiary motion, that is, it is a motion that by itself has no meaning. Subsidiary motion, that it is a motion that it's by itself has no meaning. Subsidiary motion, it is a motion that by itself has no meaning and cannot state the decision of the House without reference to the original motion or proceeding of the House. It is subdivided into three subcategories. First is ancillary motion, superseding motion, and amendment. Ancillary motion, superseding motion, and amendment. Subsidiary motion, it is a motion that by itself has no meaning and cannot state the decision of the House without reference to the original motion or proceeding of the House. It is used as the regular way of proceeding with various kinds of business. Three subcategories: subsidiary motion, by itself has no meaning. Subsidiary motion, ancillary motion, superseding motion, amendment. It is used as a regular way of proceeding with various kind of business. It is used as a regular way of proceeding. Used as a regular way of proceeding with various kind of business. Superseding motion, it is moved in course of debate on another issue and seeks to supersede that issue. Ancillary motion, it is used as the regular way of proceeding with various kind of business. It is used as a regular way of proceeding with various kind of business. It is used as the regular way of proceeding with various kind of business. It is used as the regular way of proceeding with various kind of business. That is ancillary motion. Ancillary motion, that is, it is used to deal with. It is the regular way of proceeding to deal with various kind of business. It is used as regular way of proceeding with various kind of business. It is moved in the course of debate on another issue and seeks to supersede that issue. Superseding motion. It is moved in the course of debate of another issue and seeks to supersede that issue. Amendment seeks to modify or substitute only a part of the original motion. It seeks to modify or substitute only a part of the original motion. So I have read about substantive motion, which is a self-contained independent proposal like removal of the president or removal of the CEC and impeachment of the president. Next comes the substantive subsidiary, which acts as a substitute for the original motion, substitute motion. Then comes the subsidiary. By itself, it has no meaning and cannot state the decision of the House without reference to the original motion or proceeding of the House. And subsidiary motion can be divided into ancillary motion for running the normal business of the House, ancillary motions for debate, superseding motion. Superseding motion, it is more of debate on another issue and seeks to supersede that issue. Superseding motion and then amendment make or modify any part of the original motion. Closure motion. It is a motion moved by a member to cut short the debate on a matter before the House. Closure motion. It is a motion moved by a member to cut short the debate on a matter before the House. It is a motion. It is a motion. It is a motion moved by a member to cut short the debate on a matter before the House. It is a motion moved by a member to cut short the debate on a matter before the House. If the motion is approved by the House, debate is stopped forthwith and the matter is put to vote. It is a motion moved by a member to cut short the debate on a matter before the House. Close the motion. It is a motion moved by the member to cut short the debate on a matter before the House. If the motion is approved by the House, debate is stopped forthwith and the matter is put to vote. It is a motion moved by a member to cut short the debate on a matter. The motion is approved by the House, debate is stopped forthwith and the matter is put to vote. There are four kinds of closure motion: simple closure, closure by compartment, kangaroo closure, and guillotine closure. Simple closure, it is when a member moves that the matter having been sufficiently discussed be now put to vote. Simple closure, it is when a member moves that the matter having been sufficiently discussed be now put to vote. Simple closure, it is when a member moves that the matter having sufficiently discussed be now put to vote. Simple closure, it is when a member moves that the matter having sufficiently discussed be now put to vote. Closure by compartment, in this case the clauses of a bill or in the resolution are grouped into parts before the commencement of the debate. In this case the clauses of a bill of a lengthy resolution are grouped into different parts before the commencement of the debate. The debate covers a part as a whole and the entire part is put to vote. The debate covers a part as a whole and entire part is put to vote. That is closure by compartment, kangaroo closure. Under this type only important clauses are taken up. Kangaroo closure, under this type only important clauses are taken up for debate. Kangaroo closure, that is under this type only important clauses are taken up for debate and voting, and the intervening clauses are skipped over and taken as passed. Kangaroo closure, under this type only important clauses are taken up for debate. Kangaroo closure, that is under this type only important clauses are taken up for debate and voting, and the intervening clauses are skipped over and taken as passed. Kangaroo closure, under this type only important clauses are taken up for debate and voting. Especially for debate and voting, and the intervening clauses are skipped over and taken as passed. Bulletin closure, it is one when the undiscussed clauses of a bill or a resolution are also put to vote along with discussions to do. Want of time is a time allotted but the discussion is over. Bulletin closure, it is one when the undiscussed clauses of a bill or a resolution are put to vote along with undiscussed ones due to want of time. It is one when the undiscussed clauses of a bill of a resolution are put to vote along with the discussed once due to want of time. So this is closure motion. It is a motion moved by a member to cut short the debate on a matter before the House. To cut short the debate on a matter before the House. Next comes privilege motion. It is concerned with breach of is concerned with the breach of parliamentary privileges by a minister. It is concerned with the breach of parliamentary privilege by a minister. It is moved by a member when he feels that a minister has committed a breach of privilege. It is moved by a member. It is moved by a member. It is moved by a member when he feels that a minister has committed a breach. It is moved by a member. By a member when he feels that a minister is concerned with the breach of parliamentary privilege by a minister. It is moved by a member when he feels that a minister has committed a breach of privilege of the House or one or more of its members by without facts of a case or by giving wrong or distorted facts. When he feels that a minister has committed a breach of privilege of the House or one or more of its members by withholding facts of a case or by giving wrong or distorted facts. It is moved by a member. Moved by a member when he feels that a minister has committed a breach of privilege of the House or one or more of its members by withholding facts of a case or by giving wrong or distorted fact. It is concerned with the breach of parliamentary privileges by a minister. It is moved by a member when he feels that a minister has committed a breach of privilege of the House or one or more of its members by withholding fact of a case or by giving wrong or distorted fact. Its purpose is to censor the concerned minister. Its purpose is to censor the concerned minister. Calling attention motion. Is concerned with the breach of parliamentary privilege by a minister. It is moved by a member when he feels that a minister has committed a breach of privilege of the House or one or more of its members by withholding fact. Calling attention motion and seeking authoritative statement from him on that matter. It is introduced in the Parliament by a member to call the attention of a minister to a matter of urgent public importance and seek an authoritative statement from him on that matter. Like the zero, it is also an Indian innovation in the parliamentary procedure and has been in existence since 1954. It has been since 1954. It has been existing since 1954. However, unlike the zero hour, it is mentioned in the rules of procedure. However, unlike the zero hour, it is mentioned in the rules of. Adjournment motion. Adjournment motion. It is introduced in the Parliament to attention of the House to a definite matter of urgent public importance, and it needs the support of approximately 50 members. Adjournment motion needs the support of 50 members to be admitted. It needs the support of 50 members to be admitted as it interrupts the normal business of the House. It is regarded as an extraordinary device. It involves an element of censure against the government, and as such, is not permitted use of this device. It involves an element to censure against the government, and hence Rajya Sabha is not permitted to make the use of this device. The discussion on an adjournment motion should last for not less 2 hours and 30 minutes. 2 hours 30 minutes से less ये last नहीं करना चाहिए. The discussion on adjournment motion should last for not less than 2 hours and 30 minutes. The right to move a motion for an adjournment of the business of the House is subject to the following restriction. It should raise a matter which is definite, factual, urgent, and of public importance. It should not cover more than one matter. It should be restricted. It should not cover more than one matter. It should be restricted to a specific matter of reason. question of privileges should not revive discussion on a matter that has been discussed in the same session. It should not deal with any matter other than the adjudication of by court. It should not raise any question that can be raised on testing motion. No confidence motion. Article 75 of the Constitution says that the Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible. सबसे पहले Prime Minister would say to Vice President of India, then उनका eligibility, qualification and responsibilities. That is Article 75 states the Constitution. Article 75 of the Constitution says to the Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. Article 75. Article 75 of the Constitution says that the Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. Article 75 of the Constitution says that the Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. No confidence motion. Article 75 of the Constitution says that the Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. Article 75 of the Constitution says that CUM shall be collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. It means that the ministry stays in office so long as it is with the confidence of majority of the members of the Lok Sabha. In other words, the Lok Sabha can remove the ministry from office by passing a no confidence motion. This motion needs support of 15 members to be admitted. This means the Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha can remove the ministry from office by passing a no confidence motion. Remove the whole ministry. The motion needs support of 50 members. It needs a support of 50 members. It needs a support of 50 members. Confidence motion. A motion of confidence come up as an procedural best to work with the emerging situation or tragic matters resulting in hung parliament. The minority government and coalition government, the government formed with a way for the majority have been called upon by the president of the majority in the floor of the house. The government of the day sometimes on its own seeks to prove its majority by moving a motion of confidence, meaning the confidence of the house. If the confidence motion is negative, it results in the fall of the government. Censure motion. A censure motion is different from a no confidence motion as shown in table 5.2. It should state the reason for its adoption in the Lok Sabha. In censure motion, it should state the reason. It should state the reason for its adoption in the Lok Sabha. No confidence motion, it need not state the reason for its adoption in the Lok Sabha. It can be moved against an individual, a minister or a group of ministers or the entire CM. एक इंडिविजुअल के लिए हो सकता है, इंडिविजुअल मिनिस्टर और a group of ministers or the entire CM. CM for specific political action. It is moved for ascertaining the confidence of Lok Sabha in the CM. It is moved for ascertaining the confidence of Lok Sabha in the Council of Ministers. If it is passed in the Lok Sabha, the Council of Ministers need not resign from the office. If it is passed in the Lok Sabha, the Council of Ministers need not resign from the office. If it is passed in the Lok Sabha, the Council of Ministers must resign from the office. Motion of thanks. The first session of the 8th election, the first session of every week's leaders address by the President. In this address, the President outlines the policies and programs of the government in the preceding year and ensuing year. In this address, it corresponds to speech on the throne and between discussion. In this address, it addresses speech of President to discussion both. In this address of the President is discussing both the houses of the Parliament on a motion called the motion of thanks. It is discussing both the houses of the Parliament on a motion called motion of thanks. At the end of the discussion, the motion is put to vote. At the end of the discussion, the motion is put to vote. The motion must be passed in the House, otherwise it amounts to the effect of the government. This motion must be passed in the House. This motion must be passed in the House. Otherwise, it amounts to the defeat of the government. The National President is an occasion with the members of Parliament on this discussion. The inaugural speech of the President is an occasion available to the members of the Parliament to raise discussion and debate, to examine and criticize the government and administration for its lapses and failure. This inaugural speech of the President is an occasion available to the members of the Parliament to Today's discussion and debate to examine and criticize the government administration for its lapses and failures. No day yet in no day yet name motion, no day yet name motion. It is a motion that has been admitted by the speaker, but no date has been fixed for its discussion. No day yet name motion. It is a motion that is admitted by the speaker. It is a motion that has been admitted by the speaker, but no date has been fixed for its discussion. The speaker, after considering the state of business in the House and in consultation with the leader of the House and the recommendation of the Business Advisory Committee, allots a day or days or part of the day for the discussion of such a motion. Dilatory motion is a motion for the adjournment of the debate on number motion, resolution, etc. or a motion to retard or delay the progress of a business under consideration of the House. Dilatory motion is a motion for the adjournment of the debate on a bill, a motion, resolution, etc. A motion for the adjournment of the debate on a bill, motion and resolution, etc. or a motion to retard or delay the progress of business under consideration of the House. It can be moved and amended at any time after motion has been made. The debate on a dilatory motion must be restricted to the matter contained in such motion, and the speaker has of the opinion that such a motion has an abuse of the rules of the House. He may either forthwith put the question thereon or decline to propose the question. It is a motion for the adjournment of the debate. It is a motion. It is a motion on. It is a motion for the adjournment of the debate on a bill, motion or resolution, etc. It is a motion for the adjournment of the debate on a bill. It is a motion. It is a motion for the adjournment of the debate on a bill, motion and resolution, etc. It is a motion for the adjournment of the debate on a bill, motion, resolution, etc. It is a motion for the adjournment of the debate. It is a motion for the adjournment of the debate on a bill, motion, resolution, etc. It is a motion for the adjournment of the debate, resolution, etc. Point of order. A member can raise point of order when the proceeding of the House do not follow the normal rules of procedure. Point of order should relate to the interpretation and enforcement of the rules of the House or such article of the Constitution that regulate the business of the House and should raise a question that is within the cognizance of the Speaker. Normal rules of procedure, that is the point of order. And the proceedings of the House do not follow the normal rules of procedure. One can raise a point of order when the proceedings of the House do not follow the normal rules of procedure. A member can raise a point of order when the proceedings of the House do not follow the normal rules of procedure. A member can raise a point of order when the proceedings of the House do not follow the normal rules of procedure. A member can raise a point of order when the proceedings of the House do not follow the normal rules of procedure. A member can raise a point of order when the proceedings of the House do not follow the normal rules of procedure. A member can raise a point of order when the proceedings of the House do not follow the normal rules of procedure. Okay. A point of order should relate to the interpretation or enforcement of the rules of the House. And raise a point of order when the proceedings of the House do not follow normal rules of procedure. It is usually raised by an opposition member in order to control the government. In order to control the government, it is an extraordinary device as a changing for the House. No debate is allowed on point of order. It suspends the proceeding before the House and no debate is allowed on point of order. Half an hour discussion, short duration, special mention, half an hour duration and half an hour discussion. It is meant for discussing a matter of sufficient public importance which has been subjected to a lot of debate and the answer to which needs elucidation on a matter of fact. The speaker can allot 3 days. The speaker can allot 3 days in a week for such discussion. It is meant for discussing a matter of sufficient public importance. A matter of sufficient public importance which has been subjected to a lot of debate and answer which needs elucidation on a matter of fact. The speaker can allot 3 days in a week, half an hour discussion, that is which has been subject to a lot of debate. And the answer to which needs a visitation. No matter of fact, the speaker can allot 3 days in a week. 3 days in a week for such discussion. There is no formal motion of voting before the house. There is no formal motion of voting before the house. There is no formal motion on voting before the house. There is no formal motion of voting before the house. Could be formal motion or voting near the. There is no formal motion of voting before the house. There is no formal motion or voting before the house. And half an hour discussion, it is 3 days in a week. It is done 3 days in a week. Short duration discussion, it is also known as 2-hour discussion. Short duration discussion, common with a 2-hour discussion, as the time allotted for such a discussion should not exceed 2 hours. Short duration discussion, it is also known as 2-hour discussion, as the time allotted for such a discussion should not exceed 2 hours. The members of the parliament can miss such discussion in the matter of urgent public importance. Speaker can allot 2 days in a week for such discussion. There is can allot 2 days in a week. 2 days in a week for such discussion. Speaker can allot 2 days in a week for such a discussion. Can allot 2 days in a week for such discussion. There is neither a formal motion before the house nor voting. There is neither a formal motion before the house nor voting. The device has been in existence since 1953, and the device has been in existence since 1953. Since 1953. So by 1962, calling attention motion 1954. 1954. Special mention. A matter which is not a point of order, which cannot be raised in question. A matter which is not a point of order, which cannot be raised in question. Half an hour. Duration discussion under adjournment motion. Calling attention notice or under any other rule of the house can be raised under special mention in the Rajya Sabha. The current procedural device in the Lok Sabha known as special mention. Special mention. It can be raised a matter which is not a point of order or which cannot a point of order क्या होता था special mention in the Rajya Sabha only can be raised in the Another special mention in the Rajya Sabha only its equivalent procedural device in the Lok Sabha is known as its equivalent procedural device in the Lok Sabha is known as a notice. Under Rule 377, notice mentioned under Rule 377 resolution. The members can move resolution to draw the attention of the House of the Government to matters of general public interest. The discussion on a resolution strictly relevant to and within the scope of the resolution. A member who has moved the resolution or amendment to a resolution can withdraw the same except by leave of the House. Resolutions are classified into 3 categories: private member resolution, government resolution, and statutory resolution. Private member resolution, government resolution, and statutory resolution. It is one that is moved by a private member and then the minister is discussed only on alternate Friday and in the afternoon sitting. Private member resolution. It is moved by a private member. It is on discussed only on alternate Fridays and in the afternoon sitting. Alternate Fridays and in the afternoon sitting. That is private member resolution. Government resolution is one that is moved by a minister. It can be taken any day from Monday to Thursday. Moved by a minister or from Monday to Thursday. Could be from Monday to Thursday. Statutory resolution can be moved either by a private member or a minister. Statutory either by a private member or a minister. Either by a private member or a minister. It is so called because it is always tabled in pursuance of a provision in the Constitution or an Act of Parliament. Private member resolution or an alternate Fridays in the afternoon sitting. Government resolution, that is moved by minister. It can be taken any day from Monday to Thursday. It can be taken any day from Monday to Thursday. Can be taken any day from Monday to Thursday. Statutory resolution, it can be moved either by a private member or a minister. Statutory resolution letters, it can be moved either by a private member or a minister. Statutory resolution can be moved either by a private member or a minister. It is so called because it is always stapled in persons of a provision in the constitution or an act of parliament. It is also called the it is so good because it is always stapled in pursuance of a provision in the constitution. It is so called stable in pursuance of a provision in the constitution or an act of parliament. Resolutions are different from motions. The following is all resolutions come in the category of substantive motion. Substantive motion, which are uh, self-contained independent proposal. All resolutions come in the category of substantive motion. That is to say, every resolution is a particular type of motion. Every resolution is a particular type. All motions need not necessarily be substantive, and all motions need not necessarily be substantive. All resolutions come in the category of substantive motion. जितने भी resolutions होते हैं, they come in the category of the substantive motion. That is to say, every resolution is a particular type of motion. All motion need not necessarily be substantive. Further, all motions necessarily put a vote of the House, whereas all the resolutions are required to be voted upon. All the resolution come in the category of जितने भी resolution होते हैं, they come in the category of the substantive motion. All resolution come in the category of substantive motion. Particular type of motion. Every resolution is a particular type of motion. Every resolution is a particular type of motion. All motion need not necessarily be substantive. All motion need not necessarily be substantive. All emotions necessarily not be substantive. Further, all motions are not necessarily put to vote of the House, whereas all resolutions are required to be voted upon. के सारे जो भी रेजोल्यूशंस होते हैं these are actions. The scheme of youth parliament was started on the recommendation of the fourth All India Whips Conference. The scheme of youth parliament. The scheme of youth parliament was started on the recommendation of the fourth All India Whips Conference. Fourth All India Whips Conference. Its objectives are to acquaint the younger generation with practices and procedure of the parliament, to imbibe the spirit of discipline and tolerance, cultivating character in the minds of youth, and to inculcate in the student community the basic values of democracy and to enable them to acquire a proper perspective on the functioning of democratic institution. The Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs provides necessary training. Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs. The Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs provides necessary training and encouragement to the states in introducing the scheme. Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs. Legislative procedure in the Parliament. Legislative procedure in the Parliament. The legislative procedure is identical in both houses of Parliament. If a bill has to pass through the same stage in each house, the legislative procedure is identical in both the houses of the Parliament. The legislative procedure is identical in both the houses of the Parliament. If a bill has to pass through the same stage in each house, the legislative procedure is identical in both the houses of the Parliament. Every bill has to pass through the same stages in each house. The differing various respect is shown in table 22.3. The differing various aspects there. The differing various aspects are shown in table 22.1. That is the public bill and the private bill. It is introduced on the Parliament by Minister. Only public bill that is introduced in the Parliament by Minister. It is introduced by any member of Parliament other than a Minister. It is introduced by any member of Parliament other than the Minister. Next is it. It reflects the policies of the government ruling party. It reflects the policies of the government that is ruling party. It reflects the policies of the government. It reflects the policies of the government. It reflects the stand of opposition party on public matter. It reflects the stand of opposition party on public matter. It has a greater chance to be approved by the Parliament. It has a lesser chance to approve by the Parliament. Its suggestion with all amounts to the expression of want of parliamentary confidence in the government and may lead to its resignation. Its rejection by House amounts to expression of want of parliamentary confidence in the government and may leads to its resignation. Its rejection by the House has no implication on the parliamentary confidence in the government and its resignation. Its introduction in the House requires 7 days notice. Its introduction in the House requires 1 month notice. For the public, 7 days notice is necessary. 7 days notice is necessary for the public member bill. Its introduction in the House requires 7 days notice. Its introduction in the House requires 1 month notice. It requires 1 month notice. 1 month notice. It is after by the concerned department in consultation with the law department. Municipal constitutional amendment. Ordinary bill which are concerned with any matter. Again, financial data which are concerned with the financial matter like taxation, public expenditure, etc., which are also concerned with financial matter but different from money bill, which are concerned with the amendment of the provision of the Constitution. The Constitution has a separate procedure for the enactment of all the 4 types of bill. The procedure with regard to ordinary bill, money bill, and financial bill is explained here. The procedure with regard to Constitution amendment bill is explained in detail in chapter 10. Ordinary bill. Every ordinary bill has to pass through the following 5 stages in the parliament before it finds a place on the statute book. Every ordinary bill is mentioned in 107. Ordinary bill is mentioned in 107. So every ordinary bill has to pass through following 5 stages in the parliament before it finds a place on the statute book. First reading, an ordinary bill can be introduced in either of parliament. Such a bill can be introduced either by a minister or by any other member. The member who wants to introduce the bill has to ask for the leave of the house when the house grants to leave. The member who wants to introduce the bill has to ask for the leave of the house. When the house grants leave to introduce a bill, the mover of the bill introduces it by reading its title and objective. No discussion on the bill takes place at this stage. At this stage, no discussion at that stage. Later, the bill is published in the Gazette of India. If a bill is published in the Gazette before its introduction, leave of the house to introduce the bill is not necessary. No discussion on the bill takes place at this stage. Later, the bill is published in the Gazette of India. No discussion on the bill takes place at this stage. No discussion on the bill takes place at this stage. No discussion on the bill takes place at that stage. Later, the bill is published in the Gazette of India. No discussion on the bill takes place at that stage. Later, the bill is published in the Gazette of India. No discussion on the bill takes place at that stage. Later, the bill is published in the Gazette of India. If a bill is published in the Gazette before its introduction, no discussion on the bill takes place at that stage. Later, the bill is published in the Gazette of India. If a bill is published in the Gazette of India before its introduction, leave of the house to introduce the bill is not necessary. Either by a minister or by any other member, no discussion. उसके बाद गैजेट ऑफ इंडिया में होता है द इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ द बिल एंड इट्स पब्लिकेशन इन द गैजेट ऑफ इंडिया कॉन्स्टिट्यूट द फर्स्ट रीडिंग ऑफ द बिल द इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ द बिल एंड इट्स पब्लिकेशन इन द गैजेट कॉन्स्टिट्यूट द फर्स्ट रीडिंग ऑफ द बिल second reading during this stage the bill receives not only the general but also the detailed scrutiny its final shape hence it forms the most important stage in the enactment of a bill. In fact this involves 3 more sub stages, namely general discussion, committee stage and consideration stage. यहाँ पे डिटेल स्क्रूटनी होती है. डिटेल स्क्रूटनी and assumes its final shape. Detailed scrutiny. Second reading, detailed scrutiny and assumes its final shape. So it is the most important stage because it consists of general discussion, committee stage and consideration stage. General stage, committee stage and consideration stage. Stages, general discussion. The printed copies of the bill are distributed to all the members. The principles of the bill and its provision are discussed generally, but the details of the bill are not discussed. The provisions are discussed generally, but the details of the bill are not discussed. At this stage, the House can take any one of the following 4 actions. It may take consideration immediately or on some other fixed date. It may refer the bill to a select committee member of one house. Okay, select committee of the house. It may refer the bill to a joint committee of the 2 houses and it may circulate the bill to elicit public opinion. या तो वो तुरंत एक्सेप्ट कर सकते हैं या तो सेलेक्ट कमेटी को बोल सकते हैं दैट इज विच कंसिस्ट ऑफ पर्टिकुलर हाउस और जोइंग द टाइम बैठा सकते हैं और the public opinion. A select committee consists of members of the house where the bill has originated. A select committee consists of a member of the house where the bill has originated. When the bill is originated and joint committee consists of members of both the houses of parliament. A select committee consists of members. A select committee consists of members of the house where the bill has originated. A select committee consists of members of the house where the bill has originated. A select committee consists of members of the house where the bill has originated. A select committee consists of members of the house where the bill has originated. Committee says the usual practice is to refer the bill to a select committee of the house. This committee examines the bill thoroughly and in detail clause by clause. It can also amend its provision but without altering the principle underlying it. After completing the scrutiny and discussion, the committee reports the bill back to the house consideration stage. Member can also move amendment and if accepted they become part of the bill. Third reading, United States debate is confined to the acceptance or rejection of the bill as a whole and amendments are allowed as a general principle underlying the bill have already been scrutinized in the stage of the second reading. During the second reading, Third reading at its stage, the debate is confined to the acceptance or rejection of the bill. The debate is confined only to the acceptance or rejection of the bill. Only the debate is confined only to the acceptance or rejection of the bill. No amendment is allowed to the general principle and the bill have already been scrutinized during the stage of second reading. If the majority of the members present are voting acceptable, the bill is regarded as passed by the House. Thereafter, the bill is authenticated with the presiding officer of the House and uh, transmitted to the second House for consideration. For approval, a bill is deemed to have been passed by the Parliament only when both houses have agreed to it, either with or without amendment. Bill in the second House. In the second House, also the bill passes through all the three stages: that is, first reading, second reading, and third reading. Therefore, there are four alternatives for this House. It may pass the bill as sent by the first House, that is, without amendment. It may pass the bill as sent by the first House. It may pass the bill as sent by the first House without amendment. It may pass the bill with amendment and return it to the first House for reconsideration. It may reject the bill altogether. It may not take any action and thus keep the bill pending. If the second House passes the bill without any amendment for the first House or the first House accepts the amendment suggested by the second House, the bill is deemed to have been passed by both the Houses and same is sent to the President for rescission. On the other hand, in the second House passes the bill without any amendment, the first House accepts the amendment suggested by the second House. If the second House passes the bill without any amendment, the first House accepts the amendment suggested by the second House. The bill is deemed to have been passed by both the Houses and the same is sent to the President for rescission. On the other hand, if the first House rejects the amendment suggested by the second House, or the second House rejects the bill altogether, or second House does not take any action for 6 months, or second House does not take any action for 6 months, a deadlock is deemed to have been taken place. That is all such a deadlock. The President can summon a joint sitting Article 108 of the two Houses. If the majority of members present and voting in the joint sitting approves the bill is deemed to have been passed by both the Houses. Assent of the President. First reading, second reading, third reading, bill in the second House, and then fifth, that is the assent of the President. Money Bills 109 process 110 definition. Money Bill 109 108 joint sitting 107, that is ordinary bill. 110 money bill. 109 process 110 test definition. 110, that is definition. पोजीशन करना, एबॉलिशन करना, रिमिशन करना, ऑल्टरेशन और रेगुलेशन ऑफ किसी भी टैक्स का, रेगुलेशन ऑफ द बोरिंग ऑफ मनी. The regulation of the borrowing of money by the union government. That is also a money bill. when a money bill is transmitted to the Rajya Sabha for recommendation and presented to the when a bill is transmitted to the Rajya Sabha for recommendation when a bill is transmitted to the Rajya Sabha for recommendation and presented to the President for assent, the Speaker endorses it as a money bill. If any question arises whether a bill is a money bill or not, the decision of the Speaker of the Lok Sabha is final, that he also decides that the bill is a money bill or not. A money bill can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha, and that too on the recommendation of the President, So, Speaker decides that this is a money bill or not, and it too can be on the recommendation of the President. Every such bill is considered to be a government bill and can be introduced only by a minister. Rajya Sabha has restricted power with regard to a money bill. It can reject or amend a money bill. It can only make the recommendation. It must return the bill to the Lok Sabha within 14 days. It cannot reject or amend a money bill. Make a recommendation. It must return the bill to the Lok Sabha within 14 days. It must return the bill to the Lok Sabha within 14 days. Whether with or without recommendation, the Lok Sabha can either accept or reject all or any of the recommendation of the Rajya Sabha. If the Lok Sabha accepts any recommendation, the bill is then deemed to have been passed by both the houses in the modified form. If the Lok Sabha does not accept any recommendation, the bill is then deemed to have passed by both the houses in the form originally passed by Lok Sabha and without any change. If the Rajya Sabha does not return the bill at the Lok Sabha within 14 days, the bill is deemed to have been passed by both the houses in the form of originally passed by the Lok Sabha. Thus, the Lok Sabha has more powers than Rajya Sabha with regard to a money bill. When a money bill is presented to the President, he cannot return the bill for the consideration of the normally the President gives assent to a money bill as it is introduced in the Parliament with his prior permission. Financial bills are those bills that deal with the matters that deal with fiscal matters, that is revenue and expenditure. Financial bills are those bills that deal with fiscal matters, that is revenue and expenditure. However, the Constitution uses the financial bill and technical bills. Financial bills are of three kinds. Money bills, Article 110, financial bills 117, Clause 1, financial bill second, that is Article 117, Clause 3. This classification implies that money bills are simply a species of financial bill. Hence, all money bills are financial bills. All money bills are financial bill, but all financial bills are not money bill. Only those financial bills are money bills which contain exclusively those matters which are mentioned in Article 110 of the Constitution. They are also certified by Speaker of Lok Sabha as money bill. These are also certified by the Speaker of Lok Sabha as money bill. The financial bill one and on the other hand have been dealt with Article 117 of the Constitution. rejected, approved, returned for reconsideration with the president. Can be rejected, approved, or returned. It can be rejected, approved, or returned for the consideration by the president. Can be rejected, approved, or returned for reconsideration by the president. It cannot be returned for reconsideration by the president. Financial bill 1. Financial bill 1 is a bill that contains not only any or all the matters mentioned in Article 110 but also other matters of general legislation. For instance, a bill that contains a borrowing clause but does not exclusively deal with borrowing. For instance, a bill that contains a borrowing clause but not specifically or exclusively deal with borrowing. Into this, what a financial bill is similar to money bill. That is, both of them can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha and not in the Rajya Sabha. It can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. Financial bill number 1, one similarity that it can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. It can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha, not in the Rajya Sabha, and both of them can be introduced only in the recommendation of the president. It can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha and on the recommendation of the president. Only in the Lok Sabha, and on the recommendation of the president. The only special feature that the only special feature of the bill is that it cannot be passed by either house of the parliament. The only special feature of the bill is that it cannot be passed by either house of parliament unless the president has recommended to that house the consideration of the bill. The only special feature of the bill is that it cannot be passed by either house of parliament. The only special feature of the bill is that it cannot be passed by either house of parliament unless the president has recommended to that house the consideration of the bill. The only special feature of the bill is that it cannot be passed by either house. That it cannot be passed by either house of parliament unless the president has recommended to that house a consideration of the bill. The only special feature about is that the only special feature about it is that it cannot be passed by either house of parliament unless the president is recommended to the house of original string is he not a member of either house of the parliament. This setting is governed by dowry prohibition bill. Dowry prohibition bill 1960. Dowry prohibition bill 1960. Dowry prohibition bill 1960. Banking Service Commission Appeal Bill 1977. Dowry prohibition bill 1960. Banking Service Commission 1977. Appeal Banking Service Commission Bill 1977. Prevention of Terrorism Bill. Prevention of Terrorism Bill 2002. Dowry Prohibition Bill 1960. Dowry Prohibition Bill, that is in 1960. Dowry Prohibition Bill 1960. Dowry Prohibition Bill 1960. Prevention of Terrorism Bill 2002. Prevention of Terrorism Bill 2002 and Dowry Prohibition Bill and Banking Services. Dowry Bank Terrorism. Dowry Bank Terrorism. Financial Bill number 1 can only be introduced in the Lok Sabha on the prior recommendation of the President. Financial number 2, that the only special feature of this bill is that it can only pass by either House of Parliament unless the President recommends to the House that to that House the consideration of the bill. Unless the President has recommended to that House the consideration of the bill. Budget in the Parliament. Budget as financial statement. The Constitution, Article 112 of the Constitution, the budget is a statement of the estimated receipt and expenditure of the government in India of India in a financial year which begins on 1 April and ends on 31st March, which of the following till 2017, the government of India had two budgets, namely the railway budget and the general budget. Till 2017, the government of India had two budgets, namely the railway budget and the general budget. While the former consisted of the estimate of resident expenditure of only the Ministry of Railways, the latter consisted of the estimate of resident expenditure of all the ministries of the government of India except the railways. The railway budget was separated from the general budget in 1924. The railway budget was separated from the general budget in 1924. So, railway budget from 1924 to 2017. From 1924 to 2017, the railway budget was separated from the general budget in 1924 on the recommendation of the Ackworth Committee Report 1921. On the recommendation of the Ackworth Committee Report 1921, on the recommendation of the Ackworth Committee Report, on the recommendation of the Ackworth Committee Report. Flexibility in railway finance to introduce flexibility in railway finance To facilitate a business approach to the railway policy to secure stability of the general revenue by providing an assured annual contribution from railway revenues to enable the railways to keep the profit for their own development after paying in a fixed annual contribution to the general revenue. In 2017, the central government merged the railway budget into the general budget. Hence, there is only one budget for the government of India, that is a union budget. Constitutional provision. The Constitution of India contains the following provision: with regard to the enactment of budget, the president shall instruct of every financial year cost to be laid before the statement of estimated resident expenditure of the government of India for that year. No demand for a grant shall be made except on the recommendation of the president. No money shall be withdrawn from the constituted fund of India except on the appropriation made below. No money bill imposing tax shall be introduced in the parliament except on the recommendation of the president, and such a bill shall not be introduced in the Rajya Sabha. No tax shall be levied or collected except by authority of law. Parliament can reduce or abolish a tax but cannot increase it. Parliament can reduce or abolish a tax but cannot increase it. Following provision with regard to the enactment of the budget, Parliament can reduce or abolish a tax but cannot increase it. With regard to the enactment of the budget, and Parliament can reduce or abolish a tax but cannot increase it. The Constitution has also defined the relative role of addition of both the houses of Parliament. With regard to the enactment of the budget in the following money bill or finance bill dealing with taxation cannot be introduced in the Rajya Sabha. It must finance bill dealing with taxation cannot be introduced in the Rajya Sabha. It must be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. A money bill or a finance bill dealing with taxation cannot be introduced in the Rajya Sabha. It must be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. It must only be introduced in the Lok Sabha. The Rajya Sabha has no power to vote in the demand for grant. The Rajya Sabha has no power to vote in the demand for grant. It is an executive privilege of the Lok Sabha. The Rajya Sabha has no power to vote in the demand for grant. It is exclusive privilege of the Lok Sabha. The Rajya Sabha should return the money bill to the Lok Sabha within 14 days. The Lok Sabha can either accept or reject the recommendation made by Rajya Sabha in this regard. The estimate of expenditure embodied in the budget shall show separately the expenditure charged from the CFI and the expenditure made from the CFI. The budget shall distinguish expenditure and revenue account from the other expenditure. The expenditure charged on the Constituted Fund of India shall not be submitted to the vote of Parliament. However, it can be discussed by the Parliament. It can be discussed. The expenditure which is charged on the CFI, it can be only discussed by the Parliament. The expenditure charged on the Constituted Fund of India shall not be submitted to the vote of Parliament. However, it can be discussed. A charge की बाकी है, charge on the Constituted Fund of India, and it can only be discussed if इसको discuss कर सकता है. Charge expenditure. The budget consists of two types of expenditure: the expenditure charged upon the CFI and the expenditure made from the CFI. Stages in enactment the budget goes through the following 6 stages in the Parliament: presentation of budget, general discussion, scrutiny by departmental committees, voting on demand for grant, passing of appropriation bill and passing of finance bill. Passing of appropriation bill and passing of finance bill. Presentation of budget. Convention. The budget is presented to the Lok Sabha by the finance minister on the last working day of February. Since 2017, the presentation of the budget has been advanced to 1st of February. Since 2017, the presentation of the budget has been advanced to 1st of February. Since 2017, the presentation of the budget has been advanced to 1st of Feb. The budget can also be presented to the House in 2 or more parts. When such presentation takes place, each part shall as if it were the budget. The budget can also be presented to the House in 2 or more parts, and when such presentation takes place, each part shall be dealt with as if it were the budget. Further, there shall be no discussion of the budget on the day on which it is presented to the House. The finance minister will budget with a speech known as the budget speech. At the end of the speech, the Lok Sabha, the budget is laid before the Rajya Sabha, which can only discuss it and has no power to vote in the demand for grant. The budget presented to the Parliament comprise the following: budget speech, annual financial statement, demands for grant, appropriation bill, and the finance bill. Statement mandated under the FRBM Act, that is Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. Macroeconomic Framework Statement, Fiscal Policy Strategy Statement, Medium Term Fiscal Policy Statement. Macroeconomic Framework Statement, Fiscal Policy Strategy Statement, Medium Term Fiscal Policy Statement. Macroeconomic Framework Statement, Fiscal Policy Strategy Statement, Medium Term Fiscal Policy Statement. Expenditure Budget, Receipt Budget, Expenditure Profile Memorandum explaining the provision in the final bill. Budget at a glance and outcome budget. Economic survey used to be presented to the parliament along with the budget. Now it is presented one day or a few days before the presentation of the budget. The report is prepared by the finance ministry and indicates the status of the national economy. General discussion, presentation on the budget. उसके बाद आता है general discussion. The general discussion on budget begins a few days after its presentation. The general discussion on budget begins a few days after its presentation takes place. Both houses of parliament last usually for 3 to 4 days. The general discussion on budget begins a few days. The general discussion on budget begins a few days after its presentation. The general discussion on budget begins a few days after its presentation. It takes place in both the houses of the parliament. During the stage, Lok Sabha can discuss the budget as a whole on any question of principle involved there, but no cut motion can be moved, nor can the budget be submitted to the vote of the House. Scrutiny by departmental committees. Scrutiny by departmental committees. Scrutiny by departmental committees. After the general discussion on the budget is over, the houses are adjourned for about 3 to 4 weeks. After the general discussion on the budget is over, the houses are adjourned for about 3 to 4 weeks. After the general discussion, after the general scrutiny by departmental committees, after the general discussion on the budget is over, the houses are adjourned for about 3 to 4 weeks. During this gap period, the 24 departmental standing committees of the parliament examine and discuss in detail the demand for grant of the concerned ministries and prepare reports, and then these reports are submitted to the both houses of the parliament for consideration. The standing committee system established in 1993 and expanded in 2004 makes parliamentary financial control over ministries much more detailed, close, in-depth, and comprehensive. Lasts usually for 3 to 4 days. It takes place in both the houses of parliament and lasts usually for 3 to 4 days. Okay, and the finance minister has a general right of reply at the end of the session, that is in general discussion. Presentation of the budget, general discussion, scrutiny by departmental committees. The standing committee system established in 1993 and expanded in 2004. The standing committee system established in 1993 and expanded in 2004 makes parliamentary financial control over ministries much more detailed, close, in-depth, and comprehensive. Voting on demand for grant. In the light of the report of the departmental standing committee, the Lok Sabha takes a voting on demand for grant. The demand are presented ministry-wise. The demand becomes has been duly voted. The demand becomes a grant after it has been duly voted. If the demand with it becomes a grant. Voting on demand for grants. Demand becomes a grant after it has been duly voted. So 2 points should be noted in this context. One, the voting on demands for grant is the exclusive privilege of the Lok Sabha. It is the exclusive privilege of the Lok Sabha, that is, the Rajya Sabha has no power of voting the demand. Second, the voting is confined to the votable part of the budget. Second, the voting is confined only to the votable part of the budget. The expenditure charge on the CFI is not submitted to the vote. It can only be discussed. Each demand is voted separately by the Lok Sabha. During this stage, the members of parliament can discuss the details of the budget. They can also move cut motion to reduce in demand for grant. Such motion are called as cut motion, which are of three kinds. That is voting for demand, voting on demand for grant, voting on demands for grants. Demands पे vote करें so that they can become grants. Policy cut motion, it represents disapproval of the policy underlying the demand. What is policy cut motion? That is, it represents a disapproval of the policy underlying the demand. It states that the amount of the demand be reduced to ₹1. The member can also advocate an alternative policy. It represents a disapproval of the policy What is policy cut motion? That is disapproval of the policy underlying the demand. It states that the amount of the demand be reduced to rupee 1. It states that the amount of demand be reduced to rupee 1. It states that amount of the demand be reduced to rupee 1. The member can also advocate an alternative policy. Policy cut motion, it represents the disapproval of the policy. Policy cut motion, it represents a disapproval of the policy underlying the demand. Policy cut motion, it represents the disapproval of the policy. What is policy cut motion? It represents the disapproval of the policy. What is policy cut motion? That is, it represents the disapproval of the policy underlying the demand. It states that the amount of the demand be reduced to rupee 1. What is policy cut motion? It represents the disapproval of the policy underlying the demand. It states that the amount of the demand be reduced to rupee 1. Economic cut motion, it represents the economy that can be affected in the proposed expenditure. It states that the amount of the demand be reduced by a specified amount. It states that the amount of the demand can be reduced by a specified amount. It states that the amount of the demand be reduced by a specified amount. It states that the amount of demand be reduced by a specified amount, which may either be a lump sum reduction in demand or omission or reduction of an item in the demand. Token cut motion. Token cut motion, it ventilates a special grievance that is within the sphere of responsibility of the government of India. It states that the amount of the demand be reduced by 100. टोकन कट मोशन, पॉलिसी कट मोशन पूरी तरह से उसको हम लोग disapprove कर रहा है. Economy cut motion, that the amount of the demand can only be reduced by a specific amount. Economy cut motion. And token cut motion, that is, it ventilates a specific grievance. It ventilates a specific grievance that is within the sphere of the responsibility of the government of India. It states that the amount of the demand be reduced by 100 rupees. To be admissible must satisfy the following condition. It should relate to the demand only. It should be clearly expressed and should not contain arguments or defamatory statement. It should be confined to one specific matter. It should not make suggestion for the amendment or repeal of existing laws. Okay. It should be confined to one specific matter only. It should not refer to a matter that is not primarily in the concern of union government. It should not relate to the expenditure charged on the CFI. It should not relate to a matter that is under adjudication by a court. It should not raise a question of privilege. It should not revive discussion on a matter on which a discussion has been taken in the same session. Discussion on a matter on which a decision has been taken in the same session. It should not relate to a trivial matter that is of little importance. It should not relate to a trivial matter. It should not reflect on the character or conduct of any person whose conduct can only be challenged on a substantive motion. It should not reflect on the character or conduct of any person whose conduct can only be challenged on a substantive motion. It should not anticipate a matter which has been previously appointed for consideration in the same session. It should not seek to raise a discussion on a matter pending before any statutory tribunal or statutory authority performing judicial or quasi-judicial function or any commission or court of inquiry. The significance of a cut motion lies in facilitating the initiation of concentrated discussion on a specific demand for grant and upholding the principle of responsible government by prohibiting the activities of the government. By probing the activities of the government, not prohibiting, by probing the activities of the government. However, the cut motion do not have much utility in practice. They are only moved and discussed in the House but not passed if the government enjoys majority support. They are only moved and discussed in the House. They do not have much utility. The cut motions do not have much utility in practice. They are only moved and discussed in the House but not passed as the government enjoys the majority support. This passage by the Lok Sabha amounts to the expression of want of parliamentary confidence in the government and may lead to resignation. On the last day of the days allotted for their passage amount to the expression of want of parliamentary confidence in the government and may lead to its resignation. On the last day of the days allotted for discussion and voting on the demand for grant, the Speaker puts all the remaining demands to vote and dispose them whether they have been discussed with the members or not. This is known as collating. On the last day of the day allotted for discussion and voting on the demand for grant, the Speaker puts all the remaining demands to vote and disposes them whether they have been discussed by the members or not. On the last day of the day allotted for discussion and voting on the demand for grant puts all the remaining demands to vote and dispose them whether they have been discussed by the members or not, and this is known as collating. passing of appropriation bill, the constitution states that no money shall be withdrawn from the CFI India except under the appropriation made by law. According an appropriation bill is introduced to provide for the appropriation out of the CFI. Okay, general discussion, presentation of the budget, general discussion. Scrutiny by departmental committees voting on demands for grant. Then the fifth process is passing of appropriation bill. Passing of appropriation bill. The grants voted by the Lok Sabha, the expenditure charge on the CFI, no such amendment can be proposed to the appropriation bill. Government cannot withdraw money from the consolidated fund of India till the enactment of the appropriation bill. This takes time and usually goes on till the end of April, but the government needs money to carry on its normal activities after 31st March. At the end of the financial year, to overcome the financial difficulty, the Constitution has authorized the government to make any grant in advance in respect of the estimated expenditure for the part of the financial year, pending the completion of the voting of the demand for grant and the enactment of the appropriation bill. This provision is known as vote on account. It is passed or granted after the general discussion on budget is over. It is generally granted for 2 months for an amount equivalent to 1/6 of the total estimation. Vote on account, it is granted only for 2 months. Vote on account granted only for vote in account granted only for 2 months. Vote in account, it is granted only for 2 months, and it is equivalent to 1/6 of the total estimation. Vote in account, it is granted only for 2 months. Vote in account, it is granted only for 2 months, and it is equivalent to 1/6 of the total estimation. Vote in account, it is granted only for 2 months, and it is equivalent to 1/6 of the total estimation. Vote in account, it is granted only for 2 months. It is granted only for 2 months, and it is equivalent to 1/6 of the total estimation. Vote in account, it is granted only for 2 months, and it is equivalent to 1/6 of the total estimation. Because passing of appropriation bill and becoming its act will take time. Passing of finance bill, and the finance bill is introduced to give effect to the financial proposal of the government of India. Like the appropriation bill, the amendment seeking to reject or reduce a tax can be moved in the case of finance bill. Unlike the appropriation bill, the amendment seeking to reject or reduce a tax can be moved in the case of a finance bill. According to the Provisional Collection of Taxes Act of 1931, the finance bill must be enacted. It is passed by the Parliament and assented to by the President within 75 days. According to the Provisional Collection of Taxes, according to the Provisional Collection of Taxes Act of 1931, the finance bill must be enacted within 75 days. The Provisional Collection of Taxes Act, Provisional Collections of Taxes Act of 1931, the finance bill must be enacted within 75 days. The Finance Act legalizes the income side of the budget and completes the process of enactment of the budget. The Finance Act legalizes the income side of the budget and completes the process of enactment of the budget. Other grants in addition to the supplemental budget that contains the ordinary estimate of income and expenditure for one financial year. Various other grants are made by the Parliament under extraordinary or special circumstances. Vote an account, that is for 2 months and equivalent to 1/6 of the total estimate of the budget, and it is equivalent to 1/6 of the total estimation of the budget, and it is equal to the equivalent to the 1/6 of the total estimation of the budget. It is equivalent to the 1/6 of the total estimation of the budget, and only for the 2 months. Supplementary grant, it is granted when the amounts authorized by the Parliament of the Appropriation Act for a particular service for the current financial year is found to be insufficient for that year. So, supplementary grant would be given. Additional grant, it is granted when a need has arisen during the current financial year for additional expenditure upon some new service not contemplated in the budget. Supplementary grant हम तब देते हैं when it is not sufficient for that year. Supplementary grant is given when it is not sufficient for that year. Okay, additional grant, supplementary grant we used to give when it is not we used to give supplementary grant when it is insufficient for that year. It is granted when the amount authorized by the Parliament for the Appropriation Act for particular service for the current financial year is found to be insufficient for that very year. Supplementary grant it is granted when the amount authorized by the Parliament through the Appropriation Act for a particular service for the current financial year is found to be insufficient for that year. Additional grant, that is expenditure upon some new service not contemplated in the budget. Excess grant. It is granted when the money when spent on any service in the financial year in excess of the amount granted for that service in the budget for that year. It is voted by the Lok Sabha. It is voted by the Lok Sabha after the financial year. Before the demands for excess grants are submitted to the Lok Sabha for voting, they must be before the demands for excess grant are submitted to the Lok Sabha for voting, they must be approved by the Public Accounts Committee of the Parliament. They must be approved by the PAC of Parliament. Vote of credit is granted for meeting an unexpected demand. A vote of credit, what is vote of credit? Vote on accounts and vote of credit, it is granted for meeting an unexpected demand upon the resources of indefinite account of the magnitude of the indefinite character of the service. The demand cannot be stated with the details ordinarily given in a budget, hence it is like a blank check given to the executive of the Lok Sabha. Vote on credit. Exceptional grant, it is granted for a special purpose and forms no part of the current service of any financial year. Special purpose of the token grant, it is a grant when funds to meet the proposed expenditure on a new service can be made available by reappropriation. It is granted when funds to meet the proposed expenditure on a new service can be made available by reappropriation. It is a grant when funds to meet the proposed expenditure on a new service can be made available by reappropriation. What is a token grant? It is granted when funds to meet the proposed expenditure on a new service can be made available by reappropriation. What is a token grant? That is, it is granted when the funds to meet the proposed expenditure on a new service can be made available by a reappropriation. It is granted when funds to meet the proposed expenditure on a new service can be made available by reappropriation. A demand for the grant of a token that is sum of rupee 1 is submitted to the vote of the Lok Sabha, and if assented funds made available, reappropriation involves transfer of funds from one end to another. It does not involve any additional expenditure. Supplementary, additional, excess, exceptional grant and vote of credit are regulated with the same procedure which is applicable in the case of a regular budget. Transfer of funds from one end to another. New service can be made available by reappropriation. It is granted when funds to meet the proposed expenditure on a new service can be made available by reappropriation. Token grant, it is granted when funds to meet the proposed expenditure on a new service can be made available by reappropriation. It is granted when funds to meet the proposed expenditure on a new service can be made available by reappropriation. It is granted when funds to meet the proposed expenditure on a new service can be made available by reappropriation. It is granted when funds to meet the proposed expenditure on a new service can be made available by reappropriation. It is granted when funds to meet the proposed expenditure on a new service can be made available by reappropriation. It is granted when funds to meet the proposed expenditure on a new service can be made available by reappropriation. Demand for the grant of a token that is sum of rupee 1 is submitted to vote of the Lok Sabha, and if percent of the funds are made available to the reappropriation and transfer of fund. One into another. Funds are related fund of India, public accounts of India, and contingency fund of India. receipts are credited and all payments are debited. Debit what comes in, credit what goes out. It is a front to which all receipts are credited and all payments are debited. Credit what, debit what comes in. In other words, जितनी भी revenue received होती है by the government of India, all the revenue received by the government of India, like all loans raised by the government, okay, all money received by the government in repayment of loans, all money received by the government in repayment of loans forms the CFI. All the legally authorized payment on behalf of the government of India are made out of this fund. No money out of this fund can be appropriated except in accordance with parliamentary law. All the legally authorized payment on behalf of the government of India, all the legally authorized payment on the behalf of the government of India are made out of this fund. No money out of this fund can be appropriated, issued or drawn except in accordance with the parliamentary law. Public account of India. All other public money other than those which are credited to the CFI received by or on behalf of the government of India shall be credited to the public account of India. All receipts are credited and all payments are debited. This includes provident fund deposit, judicial deposit, saving bank deposit, departmental deposit, remittances, and so on. So remittances also consist a major part of the public accounts of India. This includes provident fund deposit हो गया, judicial deposit हो गया, saving bank deposit, departmental deposit, and remittances. Remittances, this is important. That is remittances and so on. This account is operated by executive action. That is the payments from the account can be made only by parliamentary appropriation. Payment payments from this account can be made without the payments operated by executive action, that is payments from this account can be made without parliamentary appropriation. Without parliamentary appropriation, such a payment are mostly in the nature of banking transaction. इनका जो nature होता है that is of a banking transaction without the parliamentary approval. A contingency fund of India constitution authorizes parliament to establish a contingency fund of India into which amount determined by law from time to time. The constitution authorizes parliament to establish a contingency fund of India into which amount determined by law are paid from time to time. Accordingly, the parliament enacted the Contingency Fund of India Act in 1950. This fund is placed at the disposal of the president and he can make advances out of it, and this is placed at the disposal of the president and he can make advances out of it to meet unforeseen expenditure pending its authorization by the parliament. The fund is held by the finance secretary on behalf of the president, and the fund is exactly held by whom? That is the finance secretary on behalf of the president. Like the public accounts of India, it is also operated by executive action. It is also operated by the executive action. Multifunctional role of parliament in India. In the Indian political administrative system, the parliament occupies a central position and has a multifunctional role. It enjoys extensive powers and performs a variety of functions towards the fulfillment of its constitutionally expected role. In India, in the Indian political administrative system, the parliament occupies a central position and has a multifunctional role. It enjoys extensive power and performs a variety of functions towards the fulfillment of its constitutionally expected role. Its powers and functions can be classified under the following head: legislative power and function, executive power and function, financial powers and function, constituent powers and function, judicial powers, electoral powers, and other powers. Legislative powers and function. The primary function of parliament is to make laws for the governance of the country. It has exclusive power to make laws on the subjects enumerated in the union list, which at present has 100 subjects, and on the residuary subject, that is subject not enumerated in any of the state list. Union के पास होती है power. Okay. Next is with regard to concurrent list, which has at present 52 subjects, originally 47 subjects. The parliament has overriding powers. That is with respect to the concurrent list, Parliament has overriding powers. That is, the law of Parliament prevails over the law of the state legislature. In case of conflict between the two, the Constitution also requires the Parliament to make laws on the subjects enumerated in the state list, which at present has 61 subjects, originally 66 subjects, under the following 5 abnormal circumstances. When Rajya Sabha passes a resolution to that effect, when a proclamation of national emergency is in operation, when two or more states make a joint request to the Parliament, when necessary to give effect to international agreement, to international agreement, when Rajya Sabha passes a resolution to that effect, uh, when necessary to give effect to international agreement or treaties or convention, when president rule is in operation in the state, when president's rule is in operation in the state, all the ordinances issued by the president during the recess of the parliament must be approved by the parliament within 6 weeks after its re-assembly. An ordinance become operative if it is not approved inoperative if it is not approved by the parliament within that period. The parliament makes laws in a skeleton form and authorizes the executive to make detailed rules and regulation. The parliament makes rules in a skeleton form and authorizes the executive to make detailed rules and regulation within the framework of the parent law. This is known as delegated legislation or executive legislation or subordinate legislation. The parliament makes laws in a skeleton form and authorizes the executive to make detailed rules and regulation within the framework of the parent law. This is known as delegated legislation or executive legislation. This is known as delegated legislation, or it can be stated as delegated legislation, executive legislation, or subordinate legislation. Such rules and regulation are placed before the Parliament for its nation. Executive powers and function. Constitution of India established a parliamentary form of government in which the executive is responsible to the Parliament for its policies and acts. Hence, the Parliament exercises control over the executive through question hour, 0 hour, half an hour discussion, 3 days a week, short duration discussion, that is 2 hours, and 2 days in a week, calling attention motion, support of 50 members motion. Calling attention motion is an Indian innovation, and adjournment motion needs a support of 50 members. No confidence motion uh, against the COM, and censure motion, it can be for any of the people, like individual or a group of minister or the whole COM. It also supervises activities of the executive with the help of its committees like Committee on Government Insurance, Committee on Subordinate Legislation, and Committee on Petitions, etc. The ministers are collectively responsible to the Parliament in general and to the Lok Sabha in particular. As a result of collective responsibility, there is individual responsibility. That is, each minister is individually responsible for the efficient administration of the ministry under his charge. This means that they continue in office so long as they enjoy the confidence of the majority member in the Lok Sabha. In other words, continue in office as long as they enjoy the confidence of the majority member in the Lok Sabha. In other words, the Council of Ministers can be removed from office by the Lok Sabha by passing a no confidence motion. As a part of collective responsibility, there is an individual responsibility. That is, each minister is individually responsible for the efficient administration of the ministry under his charge. This means that they continue in office so long as they enjoy the confidence of the majority members in the Lok Sabha. In other words, the Council of Ministers can be removed from office by Lok Sabha by passing a no confidence motion. The Lok Sabha can also express lack of confidence in the government in the following way: by passing a motion of thanks on by not passing a motion of thanks to the president's inaugural address, by rejecting a money bill, by claiming the government a vital issue, by passing a cut motion. Therefore, the first function of parliament can be said to be select the group which is to form the government, support and sustain it in power so long as it enjoys its confidence, and to expel it when it ceases to do so, and leave it to the people to decide in the next general election. Financial powers. What is meant by delegated legislation, subordinate legislation, or executive legislation? That the parliament makes the law in a skeleton form, and then the executive makes the law in a form, make detailed rules and regulation within the framework of the parent law. Then the executive makes detailed rules and regulation within the framework of the parent law, within the framework of the parent law. Financial powers and function. No tax can be levied or collected, and no expenditure can be incurred by executive except under the authority and with the approval of parliament. And the budget is placed before the parliament for its approval. The enactment of the budget. The enactment of the budget where the parliament legalizes the receipt and expenditure of the government for ensuing financial year is before the parliament for its approval. The parliament also scrutinizes government spending and financial performance with the help of its financial committees. These include Public Accounts Committee, Estimates Committee, and the Committee on Public Undertaking. They bring out the cases of illegal, irregular, unauthorized, improper usage and wastage and extravagance In public expenditure, therefore, the parliamentary control over the executive and financial matter operates in two stages. Budgetary control, that is control over the appropriation of grants to the enactment of the budget. Post budgetary control, that is control over the inappropriation of grants to the three financial committees. The budget is based on the principle of annuity, that is, the parliament grants money to the government for one financial year. The principle of annuity, the budget is based on the principle of annuity, that is for one financial year. That is, for one financial year, if the granted money is not spent by the end of the financial year, then the balance expires and returns to the CFI. If the granted money is not spent by the end of the financial year, then the balance expires, returns to the consolidated fund of India. This practice is known as rule of lapse. This practice is known as rule of lapse. If the granted money is not spent by the end of the year, then the balance expires and returns to the CFI. It facilitates effective financial control by the parliament, as no reserve funds can be built without its authorization. However, the observance of this rule leads to heavy rush of expenditure towards the close of the financial year. This is popularly called as March rush. Constitution function. The parliament is vested with the powers to amend the constitution by way of addition, variation, or repeal of any provision. The major part of the constitution can be amended by the parliament with special majority, that is, a majority of the total membership of each house and a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members present and voting in each house. Special majority. Some other provision of the constitution can be amended by the parliament with simple majority, that is, majority of the members present and voting in each house of parliament. Only a few provisions of the constitution can be amended by parliament by special majority and with the consent of at least half of the state legislature by simple majority. However, the power to initiate the process of the amendment of the constitution in all the three cases lies exclusively in the hands of the parliament and not on the state legislature. There is only one exception, that is, the state legislature can pass a resolution requesting the parliament for the creation or abolition of the legislative council in the state. There is only one exception. There is only one exception, that is, the state legislature can pass a resolution requesting the parliament for the creation or abolition of the legislative council in the state. Based on the resolution, the parliament makes an act for amending the constitution to that effect. To sum up, the parliament can amend the constitution in three ways: by simple majority, by special majority, but with the consent of half of all the state legislature. The constitutional power of the parliament is not unlimited. It is subject to the basic structure of the constitution. The constitutional power of the parliament is not unlimited. It is subject to the basic structure of the constitution. In other words, the parliament can amend any provision of the constitution except the basic structure of the constitution. This was ruled by the Supreme Court in the Keshavananda case and reaffirmed in the Minerva Mills case 1980. Judicial powers and functions. Judicial powers and functions. The judicial powers and function of the parliament include the following: it can impeach the president for the violation of the constitution. It can remove the vice president from his office. It can recommend the removal of judges, including chief justice of the Supreme Court and the High Court, chief election commissioner, and comptroller and auditors to the president. It can punish its members or outsiders for the breach of its privileges or its contempt. Electoral powers and function. The parliament participates in the election of the president along with the state legislative assemblies and elects vice president. The Lok Sabha elects its speaker and deputy speaker. constitutional position of the Rajya Sabha as compared with the Lok Sabha can be studied from three angles. Rajya Sabha is equal to the Lok Sabha, where Rajya Sabha is unequal to the Lok Sabha, and the Rajya Sabha has special power that are not at all shared with the Lok Sabha. Election removal of Vice President. However, Rajya Sabha can alone initiate the removal of the Vice President is removed by a resolution passed by the Rajya Sabha by an effective majority, which is a type of special majority, and agreed to by the Lok Sabha by a simple majority. Money bill can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha cannot amend or reject a money bill. Return the bill to the Lok Sabha within 14 days. The financial bill not containing solely the matter of Article 110 also can be introduced only in the Lok Sabha and not in Rajya Sabha, but the houses have equal power. Now, just we can only discuss the budget. A resolution for the discontinuance of national emergency can be passed only by the Lok Sabha and not by the Rajya Sabha. Can only be passed for the discontinuation. The discontinuation के लिए resolution for the discontinuance of the national emergency can be passed only by the Lok Sabha. The Rajya Sabha cannot remove the Council of Ministers. The Rajya Sabha cannot remove the COM. By passing a no confidence motion, this is because the COM is collectively responsible only to the Lok Sabha, but the Rajya Sabha can discuss and criticize the policies and activities of the government. 4 exclusive or special powers. What are those 4 exclusive or special powers? That is, it can authorize the parliament to make a law on a subject enumerated in the state list. It can authorize the parliament to make a law on a subject enumerated in the state list. It can authorize the parliament to make law on a subject enumerated in the state list that is mentioned in Article 249. It can authorize the parliament to create new All India service common to both the center and state. It can authorize the parliament to create new All India service common to both center and state. It is mentioned in Article 3 about move for the removal of the vice president. It alone can initiate a move for the removal of the vice president. It alone can initiate a move. It alone can initiate a move. It alone can initiate a move for the removal of the vice president. And another resolution for the removal of the vice president can be introduced only in the Rajya Sabha, not in the Lok Sabha. Article 67. If a proclamation is issued by the president for imposing national emergency, presidents will open national emergency at the time when the Lok Sabha has been dissolved or the dissolution has been. If the Lok Sabha takes place within the period allowed for its approval, then the proclamation can remain effective even if it is approved by the Rajya Sabha alone. Major trouble in conduct of the house. अभी रीडिंग चल रही है. Parliamentary privileges, meaning parliamentary privileges, special right, immunities, and exemption enjoyed by the two houses of parliament, the committees, and the members. They are necessary in order to secure the independence and effectiveness of their action. Without these privileges, the houses can neither maintain their authority, dignity, and honor. No one can protect their member from any obstruction, the discharge of the parliamentary responsibility. The Constitution has also extended the parliamentary privilege to those persons who are entitled to speak and take part in the proceeding of a House of Parliament or in its committees. These include the Attorney General of India and Union Ministry. It must be clarified here that parliamentary privileges do not extend to the President, who is also an integral part of the Parliament. Do not extend to the President, who is also an integral part of the Parliament. Classification: parliamentary privilege can be classified into two broad categories: those that are enjoyed by each house of the Parliament collectively, those that are enjoyed by the members individually. Each house of Parliament collectively and enjoyed by the members individually. These include the Attorney General of India. It must be clarified here that parliamentary privileges do not extend to the President, who is also an integral part. Parliament collective privileges, a privilege belonging to each house of Parliament, but collectively are: it has the right to publish its report about and proceeding, and also the right to prohibit others from publishing the same. The 44th Amendment Act of 1978 restored the freedom of the press to publish the true reports of parliamentary proceeding without prior permission of the House, but this is not applicable in the case of a secret sitting of the House. It excludes strangers from this proceeding and holds secret sitting to discuss an important matter. It can make rules, regulate its own procedure and the conduct of its business, and to adjudicate upon such matter. It can punish members as well as outsiders for breach of its privileges or its contempt of by reprimand, admonition, or imprisonment, also suspension or expulsion in case of member. Immediate information of the arrest, detention, conviction, imprisonment, and release of a member. It can institute inquiries and order attendance of witnesses and send for relevant papers and record. The courts are prohibited to inquire into the proceeding of a house. Courts are prohibited to inquire into the proceeding of a house or its committees. No person, either a member or outsider, can be arrested, and no legal process, civil or criminal, can be served within the pursuit of the house without the permission of the presiding officer. Arrested, and no legal process can be served within the persons of the house without the permission of the presiding officer. Individual privileges belonging to the members individually are: they cannot be arrested during the session of Parliament and 40 days before the beginning and 40 days after the end of the session. They cannot be arrested in the session They cannot be arrested during a session during this session of the Parliament and 40 days before the beginning and 40 days after the end of the session. This privilege is available only in the civil cases. Only in the civil cases, and not in criminal cases or preventive detention cases. They have freedom of speech in Parliament. No member is liable to any proceeding in any court for anything said or any vote given by him in Parliament or its committees. This freedom is subject to the provision of the Constitution and to the rules and standing orders regulating the procedure of Parliament. They are exempted from jury service. They can refuse to give evidence and appear as a witness in case of pending in a court when Parliament is in session. Breach of privilege and contempt of House: when any individual or authority disregards or attacks any of the privileges, rights, and immunities either of the member individually or of the House in its collective capacity, the offence is termed as a breach of privilege and is punishable by the House Next is any act or omission which obstructs a House of Parliament, its members, or its officers in the performance of the function, or which has a tendency directly or indirectly to produce result against dignity, authority, and honor of the House, is treated as a contempt of the House. Though the two phrases a breach of privilege and contempt of the House are used interchangeably, they have different application. Normally, breach of privilege may count to contempt of the House. Likewise, Contempt of the house may include a breach of privilege, also contempt of the house, however, has wider implication. There may be contempt of the house without specifically committed a breach of privilege. Similarly, actions which are not breaches of any specific privilege but an offense against the dignity and authority of the house amount to contempt of the house. For example, disobedience to a legitimate order of the house is not a breach of privilege but can be punished as a contempt of the house. So, source of privileges originally the Constitution at Article 105 expressly mentioned two privileges, that is freedom of speech in Parliament and right to publication of its proceeding. Freedom of speech in Parliament, Article 105, Article 105, Article 105 provided for the speech in Parliament and the right of publication of its proceeding. With regard to other privileges, it provided that they were to be the same as those of the British House of Commons, its committees and its members on the date of its commencement, that is 26 January 1950, until defined by the Parliament. Same as those of the British House of Commons, its committees and its members on the date of its commencement. With regard to other privileges, it provided that they were to be the same as those of the British House of Commons. That they were to be same as those of the British House of Commons, its committees and its members on the date of its commencement. Sources of privileges. What of privileges? Constitutional provision, various laws made by the Parliament, rules of both houses, parliamentary convention, and judicial interpretation. And the judicial interpretation. The Constitution, Article 105, expressly mentioned two privileges, that is freedom of speech in Parliament and right of publication of its proceeding. With regard to other privileges, it provided that they were to be the same as those of the British House of Commons, its committees and its members on the date of its commencement, that is 26 January 1950, until defined by Parliament. The 45th Amendment Act of 1978 provided that the other privileges of each House of Parliament, its committees and its members are to those which they had on the date of its commencement, that is 20 June 1979, until defined by Parliament. This means that the position with regard to the privilege remains same. In other words, the amendment has made only verbal changes by dropping a direct reference to the British House of Commons without making any change in implication of the provision. It should be noted here that Parliament till now has not made any special law to exhaustively codify all the privileges. They are based on five sources, namely constitutional provision, various laws made by the Parliament, rules of both the houses, parliamentary convention, and judicial interpretation. Sovereignty of Parliament. The doctrine of sovereignty of Parliament is associated with the British Parliament. Sovereignty means the supreme power within the state. The supreme power in Great Britain lies with the Parliament. There are no legal restrictions on its authority and jurisdiction. Therefore, the sovereignty of Parliament, parliamentary supremacy, is a cardinal feature of the British constitutional system. According to AVDIC, the British jurisprudence principle is the implication. The Parliament can make amends, substitute, or repeal any law. D. Law में British political analyst said the British Parliament can do everything except make a woman a man and a man a woman. The Parliament can make constitutional laws with the same procedure as ordinary laws. In other words, there is no legal distinction between the constitutional authority and the legislative authority of the British Parliament. The parliamentary laws cannot be declared invalid by the judiciary as being unconstitutional. In other words, there is no system of judicial review in Britain. There is no system of judicial review in Britain. In the Indian Parliament, on the other hand, the Indian Parliament, on the other hand, cannot be regarded as a sovereign body in the similar sense as there are legal restriction on its authority. The Indian Parliament cannot be regarded as a sovereign body. क्यों? क्योंकि पास उसका legal restriction है on its authority and jurisdiction. The factor that limit the sovereignty of Indian Parliament are the nature of the Constitution. The Constitution is the fundamental law of the land in our country. It has defined authority and jurisdiction of all the three organs of the Union government and the nature of interrelationship between them. Hence, the Parliament has to operate within the limits prescribed by the Constitution. Hence, the Parliament has to operate within the limits prescribed by the Constitution. There is also a legal distinction between the legislative authority and the constituent authority of the Parliament. Hence, the Parliament has to operate within the limits prescribed by the Constitution. Okay, there is also legal distinction between the legislative authority and the constituent authority of the Parliament. Moreover, the ratification power of the state is also required and written. On the other hand, the Constitution is neither written nor there is anything like fundamental law of the land. Federal system of government. India is a federal system of government with the constitutional division of power between the union and the state. Both have to operate within the spheres allotted to them. Hence, the law-making authority of the Parliament gets confined to the subjects enumerated in the Union list and the concurrent list, and does not extend to the subjects enumerated in the state list, except in 5 abnormal circumstances, and that too for a very short period. Britain, on the other hand, has a unitary system of government, and hence all the power is vested in the centre. System of judicial review. The adoption of an independent judiciary. The power of judicial review also restricts the supremacy of our parliament. Both the Supreme Court and the High Court can declare the laws enacted with the parliament as void and otherwise unconstitutional if they contravene any provision of the constitution. On the other hand, there is no system of judicial review in Britain. The British courts have to apply the parliamentary laws to specific cases without examining their constitutionality, legality, or reasonableness. Fundamental right. The authority of the parliament is also restricted by the incorporation of a court of justice. Civil fundamental right. Under Part 3 of the Constitution, Article 13 prohibits the state from making a law that either takes away totally or abrogates in part a fundamental right. Article 13 prohibits the state from making a law that either takes away totally or in part a fundamental right, hence a parliamentary law. Article 13 prohibits the state from making a law that either takes away total or abrogates in part of a fundamental right, hence a parliamentary law that contravenes a fundamental right shall be void. Article 12 has defined the term. Article 12 has defined the term for the purpose of Part 3. Article 13 law inconsistent with fundamental rights. Okay, in Britain, on the other hand, there is no codification of justiciable fundamental rights in the Constitution. The British Parliament has also not made any law that lays down the fundamental right of the state. However, it does not mean that the British citizens do not have right. Though there is no charter guaranteeing right, there is a maximum liberty in Britain due to the existence of the rule of law. Therefore, even though the nomenclature and organizational pattern of a parliament is similar to that of the British Parliament, there is substantial difference between the two. The Indian Parliament is not a sovereign body, but in that sense, indeed, the British Parliament is a sovereign body. Unlike the British Parliament, the authority and jurisdiction of the Indian Parliament are defined, limited, and restrained. In this regard, the Indian Parliament is similar to the American legislature known as Congress. In US, also the sovereignty of Congress is legally restricted by the written character of the Constitution, the federal system of government, and the system of judicial and the Bill of Rights. 12th. This is the 18th. Which is going on. Fifth Lok Sabha that was to expire on 18th of March. Fifth Lok Sabha expire on 18 March 1976 was extended by 1 year up to 18 March 1977 by the House of the People. It was extended for a further period of 1 year up to 18 March. It was extended for a further period of 1 year up to 18 March 1978 by the House of the People. Amendment at 1976. However, the House was dissolved on 18 January 1977. 18 January 1977 after having been in existence for a period of 5 years, 10 months and 6 days. Having been in existence for a period of 5 years, 10 months and 6 days. Okay. Article 121 of the Constitution says that no. Article 121 Supreme Court 147. No discussion shall take place in Parliament with respect to the conduct of any judge of the Supreme Court or a High Court in the discharge of his duties except upon a motion presenting an address to the President praying for the removal of the judge. Okay.